Now, is this video and audio or just audio?
Video and audio.
Okay. Let me just make sure you can see me then.
All right. There we go. All righty. Well, we'll get into it. So, um, we are here to talk about, I think, the illusion of happiness and success as they relate. Um, because they're two different things, but I think a lot of people think of them as one. And so I'm definitely interested to get your perspective and take on it. Because we all know there are plenty of successful people that are downright miserable. Um, and I guess growing up, we always have this illusion that whether it's, I don't know if you want to call it clarity, certainty of kind of a financial success equals happiness. But I've found it to be untrue in my 49 years. So I'm excited to get your take.
Let go. Asteroid of fear.
Right.
So how's it going today?
Everything's great. I'm on Martha's Vineyard, so I couldn't be better.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's hot as all get out here in Texas, and I would like to be in Martha's Vineyard for sure. But yes, welcome to
Where in Texas are you?
East Texas. I'm right in between Dallas and Shreveport.
Oh, cool. We
Yeah.
watch programs now in Austin with Kill Tony.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love Kill Tony. Funny, funny, funny. Yeah, my wife and I we relocate. We lived in Austin for 9 years and enjoyed it quite a bit. However, since relocating back to where I'm from, on 12 acres, I enjoy the peace.
Right. Richard,
Uh,
can you speak just 2 minutes? I want to get my contacts out
yeah,
because it's bothering me. Just give me 2 minutes.
go for it.
Thanks so much. That really feels better.
All right. We are back from the pause for the cause. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about success, happiness, and perfectionism because I know I grew up kind of thinking having these same ideas, and I've always kind of been a perfectionist, a little bit of a people pleaser, OCD, and then joining the military at 17
Oh boy.
probably did not help with a lot of attention to detail. And so I've slowly learned to kind of let go of some of it, but I still struggle with it.
I,
Especially kind of like that all or nothing type of thing if it's not going to be perfect. And my 11-year-old suffers with it too. And so, part of my own personal therapy is to be able to help her because she is so much like me. And
Yeah, it's one of the things I teach. Your children will always be like you, not necessarily what you say, what you do. So I get it. Now, the main reason I think that wealthy people tend to be so unhappy is two things. Number one, they focus on cars and money and all of this special things. They don't focus on really just accepting themselves and loving themselves for who they are. They always have to be more. But you use the word perfectionism. Perfectionism is an illness, because you always, if you make any mistake at all, you get upset with yourself. And we're human beings, so we're fallible. So we'll always make mistakes. So if you're looking at that for that one mistake each day, when you do so many things well, you're certainly going to find it. And you're going to beat yourself up, and you're going to be miserable. So it really comes down to the perfectionist trap.
Yeah. Well, let's get started from the beginning. Where'd you grow up and kind of what was your childhood like? What was modeled to you?
Well, I grew up in Needham, Massachusetts, which is just a suburb of Boston. I was bullied a lot, which really was very difficult for me. It made me feel very bad about myself. That's why I wrote my autobiography. I wanted young people to understand that so many of the things that happen in their lives and that they do, it's happened to other people before, because so many of them think they're the only one that it's ever happened to. Um, and that makes them feel so much worse. So that's why I wrote the book. I was bullied. I had terrible homesickness. Even in college, I felt like I had to come home, be with my mom and my dad. So all of this really affected me. And then I went into the family business, and I actually was extremely successful. I was doing what I love to do the most and what I was best at. I teach people that's the zone you should be in.
Well,
What
what
you
was that you were doing that because the family business, as I come to understand, was like an auto parts business, but I've come to learn in um, pinpointing my identity. I always thought it was like, well, it is a kind of service and healthcare and this and that, the other, but I've come to understand that I'm kind, caring, and compassionate, and how I serve just takes on a different form, whether it be in customer service, anything, even as an Uber driver, I consider it like serving. So, what was it um, that,
well, I absolutely love people. So
okay,
I'm
so it was the
I
customer service part of it.
Yeah, I'm the guy in middle school and high school. We had a special program where the African American kids would come out to the suburbs and go to school with us. And if one of them was unhappy or felt alone, I would sit with them and try to make them feel better. So I've been like that my whole life, but I'm also a real motivator. So my job was to hire the new store managers and assistant managers. When I started, we had 18 stores. When I finished, we had 62 stores. When I started, we were doing about 4 million in sales. When we sold the company, we were doing 100 million in sales. So
Wow.
tremendous success. The competition back in the 80s and 90s in auto parts, most of the guys rode Harley Davidsons. They really weren't happy to work. They complained about work all the time. I would hire young guys like myself, mostly fresh out of high school, give them the opportunity to earn 75 or 100 grand if they worked their tail off and did it really smart. We'd have meetings where I play music like We Are the Champions from Queen, jump off tables. It was like a Tony Robbins event.
Where, so you said you had a little bit of that in your younger years, and I was kind of curious, how does one develop the quality of being kind of like a comforter, motivator, um, to be a little bit put it out there when you're kind of bullied, and your tendency might be to kind of
Uh,
turtle
I
and
don't.
shell in.
I mean, everything in life, part is genetics and part is, growing up and having the effect from your parents and from your friends. So I don't really know exactly where it came from. I do know that when you're bullied, you're certainly more sensitive because you go home at night, and you're fearful of going to school the next day. So perhaps because I had that fear I looked out to find other people who had a similar fear or unhappiness and wanted to support them.
That does make sense. And yeah, I definitely find in kind of marrying that where you said you love people, it kind of makes sense that those things would kind of marry up and put you in a position to excel. But you talked about kind of motivating the people and kind of like a Tony Robbins type seminar type of thing. Where at that point in your life, what had you studied? Who had you looked to kind of develop that?
Well, Tony Robbins changed my life when I was 22. I went into the family business. I was a negative guy. I was very unsure, uh, very, I don't necessarily want to say unhappy, but just very insecure. And then Tony made me realize that your past doesn't equal your future. Whatever you think about is what is going to what will happen. So I did all of the things that Tony taught. I went to all the seminars, seeing how he would jump off tables, motivate people with his, clapping and getting everybody all fired up. So I brought that to the meetings that I had. He had famously he had a clap where he'd have everybody clap slow and then clap really fast and really louder and louder. And I did the same thing. And of course, the music that he always would play, I brought that to the meetings as well. So I think I mimicked Tony an awful lot. I listened to Jim Rohn, who
Hmm.
was Tony's mentor. Of course, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, uh, Les Brown. I listened to all of them, all motivators that changed my life. And then I had all of my managers listen to these tapes as well.
How how did you as a young man kind of discovering some of this information and putting it to use? What was that like for you putting it to use? Did you find it hard to implement or not? And then could you actually see the results? Like, let's say, did you do any like visualization type stuff? Whether it be for numbers, your management style,
But
any of that?
one thing happened that was fascinating and really showed me what Tony teaches is valid. When I ran the stores, I was responsible for everything. So if there was break-ins at night, and it was often in the most dangerous cities, I had to go at night and wait for the police to come. If somebody quit on me in the morning, it was very stressful because I didn't have, in the beginning, extra people to cover the stores. And if somebody stole from me, it was very stressful. So my dad came to me and he said, Todd, if you continue to feel this pressure and I see that you're this stressed out, I'm going to have to take you away from your position. So I went to the kitchen table one night and I said to myself, what would Tony do? And Tony would say, you know what? I'm going to look at the pay that I'm getting and I'm going to say that I need to take care of 3 break-ins a year, 3 people quitting on me unexpected a year, and 3 people stealing from me a year. That's just part of my pay. Anything more than that, I can kick, I can scream, I can holler, and everything else. Prior to that, every time it happened, I'd been kicking and screaming. But now I had to wait if there were until there were 3. It completely changed everything in terms of my level of stress when these things happened. That's what Tony taught me.
So it's almost really like defining a boundary, if you will.
Yeah, he was amazing how he would teach those things.
So, you kind of rambled off some numbers of what equaled success, but let's get to the tipping point where things change and we get into kind of where you are now. And I find it interesting because you'd kind of adopted some of these teachings and some of this information as a young man and used it to kind of propel yourself into an ideal position. Yet at 36, you had a breakdown. Um, what
I,
what
I
was
had,
that about?
well, my whole life, I had been very worried about things. Anything coming up, I'd stress over. As I said, in college, I felt like I needed to get straight A's. I went to Tufts University, which, if you haven't heard of it, everybody says if you can't get into Harvard, you go to Tufts. tremendous stress. So I think when I went into the family business, I pushed all of this down. I was tired, but I did go into the perfect position, work 6 days a week, never stop, having a ball. And then two things happened. The first thing is that I broke my feet. Normally I would, and exercise by then, Richard, had become the most important uh, really helper for me. If I was having a tough day at work, there were days I'd want to put my head through the wall because people did such really dumb stuff and I had to clean it up. And then I'd go to the gym and I'd feel like Superman. So, as I told you, during the meetings, I would jump off of tables. And this time we wanted to have a meeting in the main warehouse so the store managers could spend time with the managers in the office. So we did it on a concrete floor. I was wearing my shoes and I fractured both of my feet. So now I couldn't go to the gym. And then maybe a month later, we lost a pregnancy, which is really difficult for me. And I actually fainted. I got so upset. And people say that's the start of the breakdown. And then I guess it was maybe a month or two later that I completely broke. Nothing left. I mean, I wanted to kill myself. I was in bed. I couldn't get out of bed. I went to lunch with my dad one day, and the waitress asked me if I wanted coleslaw or potato salad with my hamburger. And I was so shot. I couldn't even answer her. That was just the most difficult question for me at the time. And the good news is I really came out of that asking myself, Todd, you've got it all. You've got a wonderful marriage, a great kid, more money than you ever dreamed you'd have, and you wanted to kill yourself. Something's really broken. And that's when I started to change my life. And that's how I came up with a 12-week program to happiness.
Well, how you asked yourself that question, where was the where was the starting point? And did you discuss this with your wife? And what could she tell? I mean, was she able to see the desperation for help that you needed? And how did y'all address it? Kind of what was the first step?
Well, it was very difficult for her. She's from Venezuela, which
Hmm.
is considered one of the happiest countries in the world. So she had never experienced even depression, let alone a breakdown. So she did what she could do given her past, but she really wasn't as involved as other people in my recovery. She certainly was scared to death because all of a sudden, her husband, who was this champion, I don't know if she looked at me as a champion, but certainly I felt that I was that, going to work and breaking records and jumping off tables. And all of a sudden, I don't want to get out of bed and I want to kill myself. So it was very scary for her. My sister was very helpful because she had gone through similar situations herself. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Um, well, what was the first step to getting better? How did you mentally, what was
Well,
the plan? Did you go to therapy or how did it all start?
well, it's all medication, in my opinion. And again, I'm not a doctor, but when you're that low, I think you need meds.
Hmm.
Uh, Someone should go to a doctor and see if they recommend it. I'm not recommending them, but at least for me, I never would have been able to get out of that bed or stop feeling suicidal. The meds picked me up. Within 2 weeks, I was back to my old self.
Oh, wow. So, now was that through like a primary care physician, like an overall physician, or was it psychiatry, or did you do any therapy?
I went to a psychopharmacologist. I've never been good with therapy. I'll tell you why. When I'm really happy, which is 90% of the time, therapy makes you depressed.
Hmm.
And really depressed, I can't get more depressed. So to be honest with you, I probably have avoided therapy. That's probably a mistake on my part, but I still take medication, which is something that I choose to do because I don't want to get low again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely understand because I was on medication, stripped it away. Um, after,
Most There's so many people I speak to, Richard, who say, "Geez, I had a breakdown. I'm on." Well,
yeah,
maybe that they're on a breakdown, but they say, yeah, I take meds as well. I feel like it's more than 50%, but they say it's only 15%. But I feel like so many people I speak with Maybe it's because of a lot of the people I speak to are in high intensity jobs, but I feel like everybody's on meds these days.
Yeah. Well, for me, I quit it for 2 years, but, kind of going on this self-awareness, self-discovery journey, I would notice like maybe a low point every 3 weeks, and then every like 6 to 8 months, it would just be like a crash. And, part of it was like going, hey, let's, you know, let's explore the possibility of there's actually a chemical imbalance, that you can't just white knuckle positive affirmation yourself out of this. Um, and so I got back on about a month ago, and I'm currently, you know,
Yeah.
sifting through all that.
The other thing is, let's say that you struggled with going back on meds for just for ego reasons or what have you. You should be back on meds for your daughter's sake. In
Yeah.
other, you're saying that she's struggling right now with perfectionism, and if she sees you in these really low points, that's going to affect her. So even if you kind of didn't want to go back on meds, but every once in a while you're a mess, you should go back on meds for her.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's part of this podcast, everything. I always say that she's the one that recommended I start it. And so I always say the words will be here when she's ready to hear them. But, I understand at 11, it's it's about what she sees. And, in the past 2 years, she saw me quit alcohol, lose 65 pounds,
Oh,
kind of
great.
strip down to baseline. And, she knows that I had stopped medication, but she's also aware that I started back and that I started with therapy as well.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, it's kind of like you said. I know I have to be the example of what she sees, but, did you, how did you, kind of pinpoint that perfectionism was the problem that might have been plaguing you a little bit?
I had a lot of things that I did that were wrong. I mean, in my 12-week program, I talk about hanging out with positive people instead of negative people. So I needed to perhaps change the people I was with. We talk about focusing on your staying in the present as opposed to the past. The past being you're focusing on someone that really hurt you and really upset you, and you've got to work to change that. And I have ways you can change that. Focusing on the future where you're concerned that something bad might happen to you. Maybe you're a student and you're used to getting straight A's, and now you have another test coming up and you're worried you might get a B. So there's all sorts of things that I was doing wrong that I wound up changing in order to bring me really from feeling down to happy.
Now you said, now you've mentioned the 12-week program a couple of times, and I wanted to kind of talk about that, but I wasn't sure where did that come in. As I was asking the other question, I was thinking, how did you come up with the 12-week program, and when did you decide to do it? Had you already identified the perfectionism as kind of your Achilles and said, okay, I need to work on this, and these are the steps I'm going to use, and I'm going to invent a program? Or did you go
I,
through something and kind of discover it and then decide to create the program?
well, after my breakdown, I started to realize that I needed to make changes, but I was still in the business.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 8 years later that we sold the business, and now I had a lot of free time. And I was very concerned about having another break if I didn't do anything. So the first thing I did was run the Boston Marathon, so I'd have a challenge. And then I decided to write my biography again because I wanted to share with young people that we all do the same dumb stuff. Also, a lot of high notes in the book and more low notes. And then I had more time, and I said, you know what, Todd, you've had all these experiences. You're very comfortable sharing the fact that you've broken, that you're on meds, but you seem to have really turned yourself around. What are the things that you're doing differently than you were doing when you had that first breakdown at 36? Let's put this into a workbook to help other people.
How was that process for you?
Well, everything takes a long time. I had, some people help me write it, um, and it probably took us about a year. My autobiography took me close to 3 years. So everything takes time. It's a lot of writing and rewriting and rewriting.
Yeah. Um, how in something that takes that long, how does one develop kind of that staying power? How did
Well,
you
I was,
keep yourself motivated?
yeah. I mean, I was so excited to write the autobiography because I just felt that my life honestly was so interesting. At 40, I felt like I was as successful as anybody on the planet. That's just my ego's talking, but I had really accomplished so much at the business. We had done so well with the sale of the business. I was doing a lot of charity work. So I really wanted to share the fact that I had had so many low and embarrassing and terrible things that happened to me by 40, but you can still turn it around and feel successful. And that's why I wrote the autobiography. So I had the staying power because I really wanted to share that with everybody. And then with the workbook, it wasn't that long. As I said, it was just a year. And same thing, I thought it could really help people. And that's really what I'm known for is the workbook and helping people.
What is what uh what are some of the most important um s- strategies in the 12-week program, and how do you implement them daily?
Okay, well, the most important one, and I know it's a little bit boring, but it's exercise because exercise is the quickest way you can go from feeling down to feeling like $1 million. So I always recommend people have a exercise regimen. My third week is my most important week, and that's how you talk to yourself. Most of us say things to ourselves all day long, all week long, like, I can't believe how fat I am. I can't believe how stupid I am. I can't believe what a bad father I am, and so forth. And that makes you feel awful. It actually affects the chemicals in your brain. They've seen that when they've done studies. So we encourage people to be less hard on themselves, to restate things in a different, more positive way. So, for example, when I make a speech, in the old days, if I made a speech that I thought was great, but the last 5 minutes of it, I really blew it, I would be really upset and negative and beat myself up and say, what a horrible speech. Everybody must have been laughing at me. I ruined the whole thing. Whereas today, I've learned to say, you know what? Great job, Todd. 95% of it, you really, you know, did incredible and you screwed up the end of it, but probably nobody even noticed. So it's really the way you reword some of this stuff. And then the other thing, every day you want to also write down all the positive things that you do. So you've reworded the negative and you're also focused on the positive.
How the what's a what's kind of a what's your technique when you something especially in the beginning when that negative thought or negative word might come out, let's say you're doing something and you blatantly make a mistake and you're like, oh, and you want to say, you might have the tendency to say, you're such a dumbass. How would you catch that and then turn it around? And how was it in the beginning? How much repetition did you have to do to finally get it to where the negative thoughts almost just stop coming?
Right. The first thing I encourage everybody to do is to just catch it. I know it's been a while since people smoked cigarettes, but in the old days, if somebody smoked cigarettes and wanted to quit, they'd say, look, let's just catch it first. We know you can't stop it, but let's catch it so you realize when you're doing it. I got to a point all of a sudden where I really learned to love myself. So I don't beat myself up as much. Did it take time? Absolutely. But it was constantly rewording when I beat myself up and focusing on all the positive. So we're like a record. We're used to going around and around in a certain way, maybe to the right. And now we have to go 360 the other way to the left. And yeah, it takes a lot of time to break that circle.
How did you create self-love? Because that's something I definitely suffer with. Because, graduated high school year early, received full scholarships, and so I was used to, um, you know, getting, I guess, praise for doing well, and I felt so everything seemed conditioned on the fact that I do well. Yet I don't treat myself that way as part of the perfectionism. Um, so how
Well,
did you learn to love yourself?
well, I got a fortune cookie one day and it said, you grow up the day you finally learn to laugh at yourself. So that's what I do a lot of the time now when I make a mistake. I say, boy, that's kind of funny. Um, People have said, Todd, I'd really like to be the way you are now. What can I do? And I say, have a complete and utter nervous breakdown because it's so broken. You never want to go there again. And you'll say, I'll do anything to change. And you'll realize it's not worth beating yourself up so much. So it sounds crazy, but you need to get to a point where you say, I'm just not going to do this to myself anymore. You have the advantage of saying, you know what? I'm going to do this for my daughter, even if I don't do it for myself. So, maybe the next time that you find yourself beating yourself up, you think about your daughter. Also, it's not that big a deal. I mean, is it really that big a deal that you said the wrong thing to somebody? That used to bother me a lot. Let's say I'd go to a party and I would, be talking to someone and I'm, overly honest and I might ask them a question and I see in their face that it really hurt them. And I'd go home and it would bother me for days. And now, to be honest with you, I go home and I say, that was a mistake, but I'm sure they're over it and I can't do anything about it now. And I just move on. So I'd really encourage you to try to realize that none of this stuff is that big a deal. It's just not worth ruining your life over it. So it's just a challenge. Each time you start beating yourself up, say to yourself, is it really worth it? The other thing I recommend is that you put a note next to your shaving kit and every morning you'll see it. It will say the number one thing that I should work on today is not beating myself up. That way you don't say it on a Sunday that you're going to work on it, and the next Sunday you realize you didn't actually work on it.
Mm. How how did this how did your transformation impact the relationships in your immediate circle with
Well,
family?
yeah, I mean, I think with my wife, I'm sure she would have found it very, very different because I was always so intense and just working all the time. You know, I often say that it was a shame because when my son was a little baby, I didn't change one diaper, and I don't think I ever bathed him once. I was blessed because at 40, I retired and I was able to spend a lot more time with him. But things do go back and forth. My son was telling me the other day that all of a sudden I seem kind of negative again, which I thought was very interesting. And I try to share with people that, you know, just because I might, write these books and come off a certain way on the podcast, we're all human beings. We all can go back and, so I had to really ask myself, why would I become, negative again? And now I have to work on getting back to positive. So I'm certainly not perfect. We all have to fight through it.
Yeah, it's like a oscillating. It just seasons and um sometimes you can't get to the next step without the
Yeah, two,
other.
two steps forward, one step back. But I can
Yeah.
very, very, I'm a very happy person now. Um, and I think that's because I do really focus on loving myself for being here. I don't feel like I need to accomplish any more things. I've already accomplished enough. I certainly want to be as nice as I can to people. In fact, one of the things that brings me the most pleasure is I have a fantastic psychopharmacologist. He's the one who saved me. Psychopharmacology is a psychiatrist who specializes in prescribing medication. And people know me now within my friend group that if any of their friends or relatives is in the midst of a breakdown, can't get out of bed, wants to kill themselves, they call me and I get them to my psychopharmacologist. And every time he saves them. And I get a great satisfaction out of that.
Well, I know you said you retired at 40 and you were writing the books because, hey, you needed something to do, you needed direction. Um, where, where does, I mean, it makes sense. Uh, Most people, you do something good, you discover something, you want to share it. Where did the idea come to start sharing your 12-week program? I mean, I know you wanted to help people, but how did you start doing that, like in real life, whether it be through coaching, Zoom calls? What was that process like of
Well,
helping others?
I had hired a company to help me with my autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very interesting life. I'm a very hard worker. So I could absolutely put down the things from my autobiography on a piece of paper. For example, if somebody said, do you have any memories between 0 and 5? I'd write them down between 5 and 10. So I absolutely wrote the whole thing down, but I'm not an author. So I hired a fantastic group of women in North Carolina who really wrote the book. And they write, you know, 12 books a year. So it's not like I'm cheating.
Right.
Uh, they're just called
Ghost
ghostwriters.
Riders.
Um, but it is certainly my life. Um, and so they helped me. In other words, they would get me on lots of television shows. I bumped into Kim Kardashian one
Mm.
television show, which was a real kicker. That get me on lots of radio shows. So I was probably on as much as 50, maybe even 100 different radio shows. Back then, when I did this, which was about 14 years ago, 15 years ago, podcasts weren't that big. So it was really radio and television.
Yeah, definitely podcasting has taken on this whole new dimension, but I'm grateful for it. I love it. I love the unfilteredness of it and the raw, honest, and how much truth you can get. But have you now? Do you have actually like a coaching program that people enroll and coach, or do people just come to you like you're a mentor to people? How does it work?
Yeah,
How have people?
I have a coaching certificate, but I don't really coach one on one. I don't really feel like I have the time right now or the desire. I just like getting out there. My favorite thing to do is to speak in front of people, 25 or 50 people. I love to do that. Uh, you know, Anyone can go to my website at toddpatkin.com and everything is free. So they can hit videos and they can see me talking about all 12 weeks. They can download my autobiography for free, the whole thing. They can
Oh,
download workbook for free. So everything I have, I'm giving out for free.
man, that is awesome. It
Yeah.
makes me think of well, because you talked about, hey, retiring at 40, and you've you've done plenty. You've been successful, and so it kind of makes sense that you want to give it back. That's pretty awesome. But what what's what's one of the unexpected things that's happened kind of as a result of writing the book, the workbook and whatnot, that when you were pre-retired, pre-breakdown, you never would have guessed in a million years that this would have happened, whether it be bumping into Kim Kardashian, but something beneficial that you received benefit from.
I love the public speaking. I love to hear that, I've helped somebody. What I had to learn, and several people helped me with this, even my son, is I had to realize if I helped just one person, it made a huge difference, Richard. I was someone who liked to get up and talk in front of 50 people. Um, and now I realize that even if just 5 or 10 people show up, it's important because changing one person's life is just as important as speaking in front of 50.
Yeah. And so you've gotten a lot out of the exchange of um between people. That's the
Yeah.
most fulfilling part for you.
Yeah. But I think
Um,
it's important. I want to tell you this. I was so burnt out in 2014 after doing a lot of public speaking on the book and the workbook that for the last eight years, I've really kind of been asleep. You know, I think of it as when you think about spiritual texts, sometimes they say this guy went into the woods and then they came back. I feel like I've been in the woods, so I'm not perfect. I needed to take that time to myself, and now I'm just getting back into the game.
And what does getting back into the game look like for you? What are your goals and aspirations?
All I want to do is spend the next 10 years helping as many people as I possibly can. I'd love it if I'm talking in front of 1,000 people like, Mel Robbins or Tony Robbins. That would be my ultimate. Might not happen, you know. One of the problems with me, and it doesn't upset me like a perfectionist, but I'd like it to be tomorrow. So I've only been doing this for 4 months, and I'm already, saying, boy, I'd like to be speaking in front of 500 people right now. But
Wouldn't we all?
that would take, I've got 10 years to get there.
Yeah. So, I've been contemplating purpose and life a lot lately. And you know, for me, I know it's come down to service. How I service people, I guess, just takes different shapes. But what kind of has been what have you come to the conclusion of, like the meaning or purpose of life at this stage, given all that you've done and what matters and what doesn't?
Well, I think just helping, as many people as I can. I'm very philanthropic, so I do a lot of philanthropy throughout the world as well. And I've done that probably for the last 20 years. That means a lot to me.
Yeah. Well,
It
like,
makes a difference. It's just being here. I used to say I just kind of bumble around and somebody seems to find me and I help them out.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I've come to is, it's the like of thinking of purpose of going like, well, you have science and math people. They're people who are passionate about that. They solve those kinds of issues. And then I think there's people like me who are maybe orators, bridges of communication to talk with people like you and then the other people, and almost like how people recorded stories for the Bible.
Mm.
Only now it's a podcast and we're telling stories of people, but
Now,
modern day people.
do you have a job that brings you income?
Um, yes, I do. I do some home health on the side. I'm
And you
working to,
Uber, right?
yeah, I do some Uber Eats, which gives me time to listen to podcasts and think, but it also allows me the flexibility for my daughter to be where and whenever I need. Um, and then I do some home health type stuff that's not like every day all the time.
That's great.
Because my wife and I and my daughter, we were live-in caregivers for a 97-year-old veteran. His wife had passed away and his kids were all grown away and away. And my wife used to help take care of him. And he had gone into rehab and he did not want to go into assisted living, which his daughter wanted. And so he asked, because my wife had already been helping him, if we would move in, and we moved in with him till he passed away. And so doing stuff like that. And, with that,
That's a great example for your daughter to see.
yeah. And so the meaning of life, like for me, comes stuff like that. Be kind. And, we were doing something for him that his daughter lived an hour and a half away. And we were the ones there when he passed away, taking
Uh,
care of his every need. So yeah, that example. And I've found for me, hey, service, orating the what's important in life, because I think I've always known what the world thought was important and what's portrayed and what's actually important were different. And as I've grown and I get to interview people, that's why I ask these questions. And I can remember one time being on a psychedelic trip and having the opportunity to speak to one of my nurses who was on hospice. And because of the mental state I was in, I was asking like, well, what's the importance in life? What are the important things? And she's like, just be a good person. She was on her deathbed. What's important and what's not? when you're at the end. And she's like, just be a good person. And I know that you are. And so whether it's, yeah, we get caught up in thinking all this other stuff is important, and it's really, sometimes it's not.
Mm.
Connection is important. Words are important. How we live, the views we take, the attitude we have, because that's the infectious stuff that rubs off on people and can make the world a positive experience or a negative experience. And so, I'm in that realm, and you have people who work in science and technology that make our lives better and more efficient, or whatever you want to call it. But, I think the overall general purpose is still, whether it's service, kindness,
Mhm.
and
I,
spreading
I,
that.
it's called Choose to Be Kind. A friend of mine started an organization called Choose to Be Kind, and she brought it into nursery schools in first grade. So it was kind of exciting for her.
Yeah, see, so my daughter, she goes to this art school, and it only goes through junior high. And, ideally, what I would like to do is I have some coaching certificates, is I would like to have the podcast in a place to where when she starts high school, I could get like a Sprinter van and enroll her in kind of a homeschool. Because her art school, they do audio, video production, plays, all kinds of stuff. But her and I travel to all 50 states. And instead of going to high school, because she's not a science math person, um, we could travel to 50 states, interview, meet people. She can work on the podcast with me. And that would be, I think, a real education,
That would be great. Yeah.
you
But it
know?
still needs to learn math and science.
Of course, of course. No, I agree with that. But I don't think, yeah, I don't think she's interested in those fields per se. But she definitely does need the basics. But yeah, and that's kind of the focus, is to
I
meet.
think great. That would be amazing to take her to all 50 states.
Yeah, and meet people and learn how to get along in the world, because I think, that's how we make a better world,
Yeah. You
person to person.
seem like a great dad, Richard.
I try. I try. Faulty, but that, hey, that's the whole reason I'm here. I work on myself and I put so much effort into it, and talking to people like you, who've been there and done that and know what's important, because it's reassuring that I'm at least in the right direction, or at least kind of my thought process and views of, hey, this is what's important. Because, I spent 6 years in a level 1 trauma center, and I know that life can be over instantly. And
And you can only do your best. So, you're not always going to be perfect for your daughter. I'm certainly not perfect for my son, but if you feel like you're doing your best, that's all you can do.
yeah. Well, are there any questions I didn't ask that you wish I would have?
Well, I should probably go through the 12-week program a little bit more.
Yeah, let's go through it, because I am interested for sure. This is a self journey about me correcting me so I can correct my daughter, or help her so she's not doing it at 49 like I am.
Okay. I'm actually 60 now. Well, the first thing, as I told you, is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is to read positive books, motivational books, or listen to them online. That puts you in a good frame of mind at the beginning of the day. So the physical gets the body going, the books get the mental going. Number three, I told you, is so important because it is the one when you talk better to yourself, catch yourself when you're talking mean, change the way you say it, and make a list of the things that are positive that day. Number four is being in the present. We spend 49.6% of our time in the past and in the future. So when have a child and we're on the swing set, 49.6% of the time, we're here with the child. We're thinking about the past, something that happened.
What's a tactic you use to get back to present if you found yourself, like, let's say, pushing your kid on a swing and you're drifting off into the past? What do you do once, kind of like the negative thoughts, recognize it? How do you?
Well, like, let's say that you have someone who really treated you badly in the past, and it just constantly comes up and bothers you, the first thing we recommend, if you can, obviously, is to ask them to meet for coffee. But if you're feeling so negative towards them that you really can't meet with them, at least you can write a letter to them. Hopefully, you'll send it to them. If not, at least you can write it and just burn it or something like that. So there's no easy answer with that. Many people can't get past that, and it bothers them for the rest of their life.
I like the writing it down and maybe burning it, because at least that's kind of like a way to get it out.
Yeah, and you need to realize they're over it. They probably don't even realize they did, but it's
That's 100% true. They don't even know that they hurt your feelings, and here you are a year later stewing over it.
right. It's killing you. And then fear of the future, as I said, is, if you're worried about something that probably won't even happen, and if it does happen, it's not going to actually kill you.
Yeah. So we were like 4 or 5 of the 12.
Yeah,
So speak to yourself. We spend 49% of our time in the past or the
and
future. So be present.
yeah, eliminating stressors. So the things that you don't like to do, you want to see if you can have somebody else do it. If not, you want to see if you can do it differently. So if you hate paying checks, maybe instead of paying them every time they come in and ruining 6 days a week, you get checks, you do it once a month. Maybe you're working on homework with your kids and you hate it. Maybe you can look at it differently, like, hey, I have the opportunity to be with them all the time and really affect their future. So those are just a few things that I thought I'd share with you today.
Mm, I love it. Yeah, things were.
But download my book. Go to the website, toddpatkin.com, and download the workbook, and you'll see all 12 of them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm 100% going to. It's just wild, because I guess I talk to quite a few people like you, and I'm part of other communities and groups, and I love getting other perspectives, new information, and different tools, because that's what, we all need these tools, and the more tools we have, kind of like, I say the medication, when getting back on medication, it was a tool. It's like you build a house, you put the tools away, but when a repair is needed, you bring the tools back out. And I found myself needing a repair and, got back on medication and started therapy. But, I think the more tools we have, it just gives us more options.
It
And
feel great not to stop the medicine too quickly.
yeah, yeah, and give it a chance to work. Because I thought I was almost having negative side effects from it. And my wife's like, you're not. She's like, you're the doing the same shit you did before. Kind of I tend to isolate. That's my
So, well, give yourself 2 weeks on that med, and if it's not working, try another one, because it all, you need to find the right one. Usually, the first one may not be the right one.
did you ever suffer with any isolation? Did you isolate any?
Only when I was broken. Big into that. I don't like being alone.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm an only child, so sometimes I like it, sometimes I think I need it, but the reality of it is I know I need that comfort, and it's weird. I think I was telling my wife, I go, I think both of our love languages are touch, but we both had like our bonding with our parents broken like before the 18 months, when the attachment style was developed.
Hmm.
And even though we both like touch, we kind of don't touch as much as we want. It's kind of weird, even though we're both in the same kind of
Yeah,
game
Tony
or frame.
he says each person has a different way of feeling loved. Either touch, having someone buy them things, or the last one was if you hear it. So if somebody says I love you, some people love that. Some people love when you buy something. Some people love touch. And the problem is when you're married to someone different, let's say that I like to hear it and my wife likes to feel it, but I because I like to hear it, I'm always saying it to her because that's what I like, but she'd prefer to feel it. So that becomes an issue. You want to really, I think it's really smart that you've figured out what your love language is and what hers is.
Yeah, we had the discussion the other day because I was like, I said something. I was like, well, before our 11-year-old, I go, yeah, we were. I asked her the conscious question: did we touch more? Were we like more touchy feely? Whether we're like even just watching TV, like on the couch together versus, one on a recliner, one on a couch. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I think we need to work on that. And so we
Yeah.
are, so like the other night I was like, hey, when we're watching TV, I'm like, come over by me. That way we can be together. But yeah, it's a constant work in progress. Personal development, marriage, personal development. And then when you start adding in other relationships, be it that a spouse, children, or whatever, it it definitely gets more complicated. But one of the biggest things is I realize, especially as the man of the family, uh, you could call it whatever you want. You could call it mental health. You could call it evil, whatever. If the universe can affect a man, he can impact a whole family, because you kind of set the temperature. You're the leader of your family, um, and so who we are, how we approach things, and what we say to ourselves is so important
Mm.
because it spreads out to our wife, our children, and everyone in a circle. I mean, it's just like being a leader. I used to manage 2 clinics, and so as an auto parts store, if it falls under the roof, it fell to me. So that's 2 a.m. alarm calls and a broken toilet, and maintenance can't come because they're at the main hospital. It's like, yeah, you
Yeah.
become
Well, listen,
really,
great to talk to you today.
yeah. All right. Well, like I always say, is go out and be the person that you would want to meet.
Thank you.
So you have a good one.
Yeah.
Let go. Asteroid of